Thank you so much for having us. We're so blessed to be here. I'm going to let Rihanna tell you a little bit about her first. Go ahead.
Yeah, so hi guys, I'm Rihanna. I'm sure you'll be seeing me around a little bit this weekend. I just want to encourage you as somebody who has done this retreat before, just to soak up every moment and to enjoy spending some time with your mom or your daughter, depending, and just to, really make the most of it. Really continue to pray for God to open your heart because He is there and He is ready to speak to you. So, I want to encourage you to make the most out of the weekend because it can be quite memorable.
And the time goes fast. Thank you, Rihanna. Such a privilege to be here with her again. So I'm just going to get started right away. I learned to fly an airplane when I was 14 years old. So the moms in here are going, don't tell my daughter that. But I actually started to fly on my own at 16 years old. I actually flew farther than I was allowed to drive a car. So that's pretty funny. And one of my first flights where I was alone and allowed to fly cross country, I flew from St. Paul, Minnesota to Eau Claire, Wisconsin. And the flight there went great. I had this whole flight plan all set up. Everything was great. I followed the maps, the instruments, everything was great. I was pretty proud of myself until I took off on the way home, and out the corner of my eye was a 727 that took off. And here's me in this little plane, and this 727 took off, and my plane started shaking. And I started shaking, and I realized, oh my goodness, that was way closer than I thought. And so I was pretty shook up. But I decided I better bounce back and get this plane home. And so I did what anyone would do in a panic situation. I picked a direction and started flying. It was not the right direction. And so I was like, oh my, now I'm lost. Okay, it was supposed to be really easy. I was just supposed to follow Highway 94, but I couldn't find 94 because I got all disoriented. And so I just kind of got to a safe altitude and started to look around and figure out what in the world I was going to do. The winds were really strong that day, so I thought, well, maybe I was getting pushed off course. So I just kept going in what I thought was the right direction. But it was not the right direction. It was actually not at all the right direction. You want to switch to the next one? Before I knew it, I was lost, alone, 16 years old in an airplane, with just the training I had, the maps I trusted, and the instruments that kind of failed me at that moment because I wasn't using them. All because I got distracted and fearful. And I started to trust my emotions instead of what I was taught to do by my instructor. And all I could think of was getting home to be with my mom for dinner. And I grew hungry and weary and scared. And then all of a sudden, I had this idea. I thought, well, maybe I could just call or tune into the radio at St. Paul Airport and see if I could hear them. I'm thirsty, just like the song. And wouldn't you know it, I could hear them. And I thought, okay, I've got hope. So I called into the radio, and, I told them my call sign on my airplane, and I told them I was lost. And all of a sudden, the airwaves just went completely silent. I'm sure they could tell that I was 16 years old and lost in an airplane. And all of a sudden, everybody stopped what they were doing at this big airport to make sure I got home safely. And wouldn't you know it, my instructor was actually listening to the radios, and he guided me back home. And he calmed me down, and he said, okay, the first thing you need to do is check to make sure you have your fuel tank set. Do you have enough gas? And I was like, oh, gas. Yes, that'd be good. So I switched tanks, and I'm like, all right, now I'm going to have enough fuel to get home. I broke every rule that you were supposed to do when you got lost. But thankfully, his voice guided me home. And my flight instructor's voice reminds me a lot of God's voice. All of a sudden, when we hear that voice, we calm. And with the things around us that shake us up, they leave us shaken, when we hear our Heavenly Father's voice, we can have that peace. And so finding an unshakable faith is what we're really looking forward to today. We're going to really talk about what does that mean to live with an unshakable faith in an unshakable God. So our retreat theme this weekend is fun with UN. And people probably are like, what a weird retreat name, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the word un, which really means the opposite of. And we're going to have a lot of fun with unwords this weekend. We're going to talk about having an unshakable faith, an unwavering hope, an unending love, and an unexplainable peace. All things that we can have when we get to know our loving God and Savior. And we're going to begin to see how much fun it is to live a life following Jesus. It can be a truly unbelievable life. Every day becomes an unbelievable adventure when we live for an unchanging God who understands us and brings us undeserved favor, which is otherwise known as amazing grace. So let's get started. I would like to introduce myself a little bit. My name is Heather Cruz. I have 3 kids, boy, girl, boy. You met my beautiful girl. And I love dark hot chocolate, like dark chocolate, hot chocolate is my jam. Chocolate is my jam. I love bonfires and hay rides. I love giving absolutely wild rides on tubes. It is super fun. And my kids mostly love it. Rihanna's kind of over it now. She's like a little safer ride now. And then we also are known for our famously huge Christmas trees that are really ugly. I'm hoping to start a trend. Instead of the ugly sweater party, we're going with the ugly Christmas tree party. But it hasn't really taken off yet. But for some reason, our family loves really ugly Christmas trees. So you heard my daughter and I came here a few years ago. And I'm telling you, I'm getting a little like teary-eyed here because now she's like all grown up and in college now. And so I just want to, recommend just treasure every single moment with your daughter and with your mom. It really is truly special. And take some pictures. I took a picture that was from our mother-daughter retreat when she was here that one time. And so it's just a really special time. We grew a lot. And some of the things that they recommended, we actually have continued to do over time. So I hope that can be the case for this weekend as well. So what is unshakable faith? Well, it is a faith that no matter what is going on in the world out there, we can have faith in God. And He can grab hold of us when we're shaken and weak and worried, and He will just love us completely. And we can grab hold of God and His Word and His love, and we can hold on to Him tight and just live with confidence that He will be there for us. So our key verse today is Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. And it describes unshakable faith as the confidence in what we hope for and assurance in what we do not see. And so that word confidence, I looked it up, and it really means trust. It is the trust that we have in what we hope for. And assurance is another word for promise. So we're trusting in a promise. And the Message version tells it like this. It says, trust in God, this faith, is the firm foundation under everything that makes life worth living. I love that. It's such a good reminder that we live this life for God, and then He is what makes it worth living. All right, so I'm going to challenge you right now to all stand up. I'm going to kind of get you moving. I know you're all scared, like, what's she going to make us do? It's not too scary. I am going to have you look at your mom or your daughter, and I want you to shake her hand like a handshake. All right, like, okay, this lady's crazy. All right, now what I would like you to do is, Rihanna, you can come up here if you're feeling all alone there. I would like you to create a secret handshake. Now, it's going to be hard if you have more than one of you. But don't worry, it might take a little longer. We're going to finish tonight, but I want to get you guys started. So go ahead and get started. All right.
First on, but I go here, and then here, and then so.
All right.
So here. Sorry. Okay, so clap here, oh wait, here, down.
Down. Oof, that's hard. All right, we can do this. One more time.
Here, clap, here, clap, here.
All right. Well done. Oh, I love some of the actions here. This is good stuff, ladies. All right, I am going to rein you girls in. I hate to stop the fun because you're doing a fantastic job. Oh, I love the hug at the end. That is awesome. All right, ladies, you can go ahead and have a seat. You're all saying, wait, I don't know it well enough. We got to add some more moves. Go for it. All weekend long, I expect to see some secret handshakes, all right? But I actually do have a point for that, even though it's just kind of plain fun. What I wanted you to do is to remember that you can grab hold of your mom and your daughter when life gets hard, when you're just shook up, right? You grab hold, you shake her hand, you hug her, and you know that you have a very special bond. And what I love about the secret handshake, it is unique to all of you because you all have a unique bond between the two of you that is really a treasure. And that bond that you have is what gives you confidence, where you can trust your mom to share with her the important things in life. And moms, we need to share some of the hard stuff we've gone through because you know what? Your testimony is their testimony. That's their history, and that's a part of it. And the more you can share as a mom with your daughter will start to realize how much they can share with you. And so I really want you to know that, when the world wants to shake you up, you just grab hold of that secret handshake and remember that you have a unique and special bond like no other. But now I want to take that one step further, and I want to remind you that you have a relationship with God that is unique. And we don't have a secret handshake with God, but we do have a really unique relationship with Him. Let's see. The greatest part about the relationship we have with God is that He wants us to be in close relationship with Him. We have a God, a creator of the universe that is so busy, doing a million, trillion, billion, a lot of things. And He is yet still cares about you. And He cares about your daughter. And He cares about your mom. And I think that's just really amazing. Because you think of sometimes like CEOs that are like, oh, they're so busy. They're too busy for me. That's not God. He is not too busy for us. And so I want you to just remember that today, that you have a relationship with Him. And He has actually created the perfect love that we all can aspire to be in with Him. And so God designed a perfect love for us to be. He actually created a perfect place for us to live, and He gave us everything we needed. His incredible design for perfect love invites us to be with Him. But the interesting part about His love that is often hard for us to understand is that He gave us a choice to love. He gave us a choice to love Him. And why did He do that? Because, we're all going to mess it up, right? But He had to give us a choice because if He didn't, it would be forced. Can you imagine a love that's forced? It would feel like slavery, like, you have to love me. That doesn't really feel like love, does it? So He gave us all a choice. But with that choice came the ability for us to choose to walk away from Him. And so, unfortunately, with that ability to walk away from God, it brings us the ability to sin and turn away from what He has for us and turn away from what's best for us. And so with that sin that enters into all of our lives, pain comes. And so the beautiful thing that comes with that is that even though God allowed this sin to enter in because He gave us free choice, right? He gave us the way out. He allowed sin to enter in with one man named Adam, but He allowed it to be taken away with one man named Jesus. And we're going to learn a lot more about Jesus this weekend, but I just want to make sure that if you're new here or you haven't really known Jesus, you're going to get to know Him this weekend, and you're going to see that He is going to save us, and He's going to bring us into His perfect relationship and His perfect love with Him. So if you have not decided that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life for you, you can come talk to me anytime. My daughter and I will probably be sitting at the table eating. You're welcome to just come up and drag up a chair. I would love to talk to you more about that. I am always here, always welcome. I would love to talk to you. It would be my greatest joy. And I can tell you more about my story, and we can just talk, and I can hear more about your story. I'd love to do that. So today we're going to talk about three main things. We're going to have three main questions answered. And first, it is going to be, what do we put our faith in? Second, it's going to be how do we develop an unshakable faith? And third, who is it that we put our faith in? Oh, and just so you know, I have given you note sheets, so you shouldn't have to feel too super stressed out about taking notes. And if I didn't cover something, let me know. I'd happy to answer any questions you have. So I don't want anyone to feel stressed. So what do we put our faith in? The world gives us a lot of different choices of what we can put our faith in, right? We can put our faith in the sports that we play, the grades that we get, the job that we have, the beauty, the popularity. We can put our faith in all of those things to make us feel good, right? Or make us feel loved. And all of those things are not bad things. They're good things. It's just they all can fail. They can just leave us short, feeling short, and they can fail us. But God never does. But the struggle comes with all of these things like sports and grades and beauty. It comes when we lose a game. Do we lose our hope? When we get cut from a team, do we start to feel unloved? When we bomb a test, are we a failure? Are we stupid? Where does that leave us if we put our faith in those things? Sometimes we can wake up feeling less than beautiful, but God never, ever would see us as anything less than beautiful. So, do we begin to lose our hope, or do we try harder? Like, I'm going to make that team. It's going to be really important because that is who I am. And I'm going to just keep trying harder and harder. Well, eventually, we just can't control everything. But we have a God that shows us something else. He shows us that we are chosen. In Hebrews chapter 12, verse 24, he says we are chosen. In Hebrews 12, verse 6, it says we are loved. And then we are adored, respected, accepted, and adopted. He calls us all of those things. So we can put our hope in knowing that God sees us this way. God invites us to put our trust in him so that no matter what happens in the world, our hope comes from our faith in God, not in things that easily get shaken. When our identity comes from being a child of God, no bad tryout, no injury in a sport, no coach can ever take our identity away. When we know that God's wisdom is all we need, that one bad grade doesn't steal our hope. When we realize that God's love for us is what makes us beautiful, we don't have to worry that that bully called us a name. It's God's love that makes us beautiful, not that makeup. Not that makeup's bad, but God's love makes us beautiful from the inside out. And when God's word reminds us that we are accepted into his presence through our faith, no child in the lunchroom can make us feeling alone. So if you could move forward a slide, I'm sorry, I was off one there. So when we put our faith in an unshakable God, we can't be shaken. You're probably thinking, why did she put a GoPro on her head? I want you to think about a day in your life when you wished you had been wearing a GoPro because it was such a good day that you wish you could have just walked around and see that whole day again. So I really actually want you to think about this. And I want you to whisper to your mom or your daughter, think of one really, really special day that you wish you could watch the whole thing on video. Go ahead. All right, so I don't want to cut you off, but that's something you should talk about at your next meal or tonight before you go to bed. Share your favorite day that you wish you had a GoPro. So I'm going to share with you mine. It was a day where I left my mom's house. I was just married. I didn't have kids yet. And she said, "Are you on your way home?" I said, "Oh, yeah, I'm on my way home." So I started driving, and all of a sudden I saw an airport. I don't know, you guys probably don't get into airports, but there's probably things that make you drive toward it. For me, it was an airport. So I drive into this airport, and I see this airplane that was really beautiful, one of my favorites, and I started talking to this guy that I had known before, and I started asking about his cool airplane, and he started talking, and off in the distance, I saw a glider. It was much like this, only not this crazy color. Okay, so a glider is an airplane without an engine, in case y'all don't know. So a glider actually is hooked onto another plane. So the first plane has an engine, back one does not. They're hooked together with some kind of a pulley system rope, I don't know. Anyways, so I saw this glider, and I said, oh, I've always wanted to go up in one of those. That looks cool. And he's like, well, let's go talk to him. Before I know it, I'm up in a glider. Nobody knows I'm here. Like, I didn't call anyone. I don't know what I was thinking. I call it my early life crisis. So I go up in this plane with what was I assumed was an instructor. This was not a great plan. But anyways, so I go up in this glider. The plane takes off. All of a sudden, it lets go. This plane goes away, and we're just floating. We're just soaring around, no engine, right? And at the time, I'm like, oh, this is what God says flying is. This is like flying like an eagle. It was like the most beautiful thing. I can't even explain it in words. It was so peaceful. It was so quiet. And the instructor turns to me and he says, so you ready to land? And I was like, yeah. And it occurred to me, we didn't have an engine at that time. Like, I should have figured all this out, right? But I didn't think that through. And so all of a sudden I'm like, this is a crash landing. Like, we don't have power if we miss the runway. And all of this is occurring to me at this time. And so I did what anyone would do in this situation, and I did the panic prayer. I'm like, sorry, Lord, I was so stupid. I should never have done this. I'm so sorry. Take mercy on me. I'll never do anything stupid in my life again, I promise, Lord. And so we landed, and everything was fine. You can see I'm here. But I will never go in a glider again. I apologize to my family for the risks that I took. But I realized at that moment that I had put my faith in something that I shouldn't have. It was when I got to the panic point and I started to realize I put my faith in God's and His mercy on me, right? A lot of times we think that we're just going through life. We don't really need God, right? We're good. I got a great career. I'm doing good in school. I have a lot of friends. I'm popular. And all of a sudden we realize, like, something changes and we can no longer put our faith in those things. And then we turn to God and we beg for His mercy. How many times do we put our faith in something and we don't realize it? Do we put our faith in a plane with no engine? I don't think it's a good idea. Do we put our faith in ourselves, in our accomplishments, in our appearance? Or do we put our faith in God that saved us, that created us, that guides us, and that gives us purpose? So I want to camp out in Hebrews chapter 11 today. And I don't know if you know, this is the heroes of the faith. This is kind of the Hall of Fame of heroes. There's a whole list of different ways that God has worked through these people in chapter 11. And we're going to kind of camp out in Hebrews this whole weekend, but for today, we're going to be in chapter 11, and we're going to focus on a guy named Moses. Many of you have probably heard of him before. He is a prophet from the Old Testament, and kind of a big guy, big shot. But we're going to focus on his mom and what she did. It says in chapter 11, verse 23, by faith, Moses' parents hid him for 3 months after he was born, because they saw that he was no ordinary child, and they were not afraid of the king's edict. We're going to see how Moses' mother had an unshakable faith here. It said Moses' mother, Jacob, had put her faith in the one true God. An Egyptian mandate was made to kill, that they were to kill every Hebrew boy, because Pharaoh, the king, was afraid that Hebrew people were going to grow too fast and outnumber them. He was afraid they were going to beat them in war. So he did something really extreme and horrible. But in order to protect her son, Moses' mom put her son in a papyrus basket in the reeds along the Nile River. She trusted God to take care of him as she let her son go. And then Moses' sister Miriam watched from a distance to see what would happen. And Pharaoh's daughter went to bathe, and she saw the baby. She sent her slave to go get him, and she went to a Hebrew woman and asked her to care for the baby. That woman was none other than Moses' mother. She got her faith back. She put her faith in God's plan, and God's plan grew her faith in him, which is often what happens to us, right? If we can trust God with that step, trust God with raising our daughters, we can actually start to form a stronger and deeper faith. Every time I've had to surrender myself or my kids, my faith grows. I've had to do it many times. I remember surrendering my life at the first time. I thought that was a big deal. And when you got to surrender your children's lives, it's a whole nother thing. It's so hard. But we can do it because our heroes of the faith did it. All right, so my question is, what if God had a GoPro? What would he see in our lives? What would he see in our families? Would he see the faith that Moses' mom had? Moses' mom put her baby in a basket, put him down the river. Who would do that? I wouldn't want to do that. But I want you to turn to your daughter, turn to your mom, and tell them, do you think she put her faith in the basket or in God who provided the basket? Just a few verses later, we see Moses in Hebrews chapter 11, just like his mom. He's a hero of the faith, just like her. It says, verses 24 through 26, by faith Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to be mistreated along with the people of God, rather than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. He regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking to his reward. So how many of us are looking ahead for our reward versus what's on our plate today? When we look to God for his wisdom, we see the greatest reward comes through us being able to draw near to God. We get to live for him and with him forever. That's unshakable faith. All right, so next I want to move on to how do we develop an unshakable faith in God? And so I'm going to go back to thinking about, what if God had a GoPro and he was following your family around? What would he see? Do you think? Why don't you tell your mom or your daughter what you think God would see if he was following you around with a GoPro? Would he see his grace? Would he see his grace lived out? They are having way too much fun with this. I think I scared him a little. I don't think God's meant to be scary, but yeah, it can be a little scary when you think of him moving into your house, right? When I make decisions, I like to think of God sitting next to me, God running a film and seeing what I just did or said to someone. And I quickly say, I'm sorry, Lord, I'm trying to follow you. I'm trying to be better. So would God see his grace, or would he see a rat race? God calls us to run to him with perseverance, but we need to run toward him with his grace. What would be the theme woven out throughout your family's story, their faith story? Would God's GoPro show the race marked out for your family? Or is he going to see you running a race you feel everybody else is telling you what you should do? It's really tempting as moms to do what everybody tells us we should be doing with our kids. And sometimes we get off track to what God wants because we're trying to live out what everybody else is telling us to do. And it can be hard. It can be hard to stand out. And God often calls us to do something different than maybe our neighbors are doing. Who would be the hero in your film? Who's the hero in your family's film? The Bible says we are to fix our eyes on Jesus, not on ourselves, not on what others are doing or what others are wearing or what others are saying about us. When we allow Jesus to be the hero of our family story, he is glorified, and we get to watch God work in our lives. I want you to look to God for a vision for your family. Really think about, how can we live intentionally as God would have us live? Because sometimes we're just living this day. And then the next day, and the next day. And before you know it, you're looking back and going, did I do what I felt God calling me to do, or did I just survive? And sometimes you're in a stage where you're just surviving, and that's okay. But every once in a while, especially on a weekend like this, it's nice to take some time and pause and think, am I living out the vision God has for my life and my family's life? And so it starts with a vision. It starts with praying for God to give you that vision and working with the people in your life. If it's your husband or your kids, sit and talk about that. Or, maybe just a godly friend can help you see that vision. Next, we need to persevere. We need to start with God's best and continue to do hard things to make God's vision happen. Next, we need to remove barriers. Sometimes we have barriers in our family. We don't even realize we put them up. I don't know about you. I hate to say the C word, COVID. But after that, it really elevated some of the things that are happening in our lives. Of, coping mechanisms that we might be using. A lot of screens really stepped up. And we all started kind of using screens a little bit more. And sometimes it's time to take a pause and say, you know what? Are we spending time together playing games? Are we interacting? Are we having fun as a family? What would God's film for our life be looking like? And then finally, I think we need to keep God in sight. Sometimes we forget He's literally sitting at our table. He's in the car with us. He's in between that hug with our kids. And in that story time, God is so present with us if we ask Him to. So I want to sneak into Hebrews chapter 12 for just a little bit. And I want to think about Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1. We all know this scripture, but I think we forget that the first verse in 12, it follows right after chapter 11. And sometimes we forget that those two things are connected because there's that break in the middle. So let's see. This section of scripture follows right after the epic scenes laid out by the multitude of the heroes of faith. It is like the final scene in an epic movie where we see all the characters come out for a grand ceremony praising God for His faithfulness. And Paul writes this profound statement that many of you have heard before. It says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, the heroes of the faith, let us throw off everything that hinders us, like our screens or, whatever else we're using to numb our pain. The sin that so easily entangles us, let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, or in our case, our families. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. He wants us to draw near and get rid of all the baggage that holds us back. Sin can keep us from being near a perfect God because a perfect God can't be near sin. So what do? We get rid of the sin by asking God for forgiveness. It says in my Bible study note that I picked up on here is sin always blocks our vision of God. And I think that's so true. So when we're trying to get this vision for our family, what is our family? What do we really prioritize and care about? If there's some sin blocking us, we may not be hearing from God directly. So something we need to think about. All right, so let's imagine for a second that Jesus drove up to the movie theater near you. Let's say He stops by the concession stand. He grabs a big bucket of popcorn, some junior mints, and a big old slushie, because who doesn't want that when they go to the movie, right? Y'all are junior mints people? Yeah, my husband doesn't like mint. I don't understand, and we still get along great, but I don't get that. But anyway, so he strolls into the stadium seats, drops down in the middle of the best row of seats. What would he see in the movie of your life? Picture the opening scene. As he looks around, he sees the peaceful home that He's provided for your family. The dinner conversations where His name comes up naturally. The way the kids give forgiveness when they argue about silly things. The epic struggles that your family's facing right now. He sees the items that you reach for to be able to thrive during those epic problems. Does He see your family dropping to their knees when their struggle is just too big? Does He see you reaching out to Him in those times? Does He see your kids kneel next to their bed at night reaching for their adventure Bible or their devotional? Does He marvel at the final scene of the epic climax of your film Does he weep when he watches your family worship with their hands held high at the end of the movie, worshiping and glorifying him in all that you do? And Jesus grabs one more handful of popcorn with a big smile on his face, and he whispers to himself, well done, good and faithful family, well done. Does that sound heavenly? Possible? I don't know. It sounds tough, right? But I think we can do it. I really do. What if we can have an authentic and unshakable faith like that? One where we seek God for his vision for our lives instead of doing what the world tells us we have to do. One where we cry out to him in desperate times in need of help, instead of grabbing worldly filler of screens or different kinds of drinks or empty entertainment. One where we have a church family that we can lean on and forgive when they've wronged us. Instead of letting relationship struggles steal our joy, steal our ability to go and find a church community. Sometimes we settle for less, but we got to just keep on trying because life gets hard. Maybe our church family let us down, but we can't just abandon them, or we can't abandon a church. If a church hurt is too hard, go find another church, but don't leave God, right? Every good film has times of conflict and struggle. It is what we do with those hard times that make our faith unshakable. Remember, it's not whether we argue or fight. We all argue, right? It's what we do, how we communicate, how we forgive, and how we reach out to God for strength that matters to our families. When we realize we are part of God's epic story, every part of our story can be used for his good and his glory. Even the hard parts, even the parts that don't make sense, God can be glorified in that. And that's where our unshakable faith comes in. And our third and final point tonight is, who do we put our faith in? Who is this God guy? Who is this Jesus? How do we make this work? The world tempts us to put our faith in so many different things that don't last. But God calls us to put our faith in him, his character, his promises, his love, his way, his truth, and his life. So how do we make God the hero in our faith story? We get to know God and his character. When we begin to see how big and mighty God is, we realize we are just a small part of his incredible story. Hebrews chapter 1, verse 2 says he is the creator of the universe. Everything, not just parts. Every organized detail, everything we look at in nature, God created that just for us and for him to be glorified. In Hebrews chapter 1, verse 3, it says, his son is the radiance of his glory. He is the light of the world. He sustains all things through his word in Hebrews chapter 1, 3. Hebrews chapter 1, verse 4 says, his majesty is greater than the angels. He laid the foundations of the earth, and the heavens are the work of his hands. He will always remain the same, and his kingdom will never end. It says his son was tempted in every way, but never sinned. And finally, he can empathize and understand with our needs because he came to be with us. So I have to share a camp story. I did not know about Camp Forest Springs when I was young. I wish I would have. But I was at a different camp when I was in high school, and that's where I felt like the Lord just really got a hold of my heart and really saved me, and I'm so grateful for that. But I was coming out of the beach one day when I was 17, and I looked up, and I saw this family up by like the main area. And I felt like God said to me, you're going to be here with your family one day. And I was like, I'm 17, like what are you talking about? But I remember that years later. It was like this almost a picture in my mind that we were going to be there. I didn't even have kids at that time. So years later, 3 kids later, married, all of a sudden I felt like God whisper almost in the same light, it's time to go to family camp. And I was like, huh? I wasn't even thinking about camp. It was crazy. And so I was like, I ran home and I'm like, John, that's my husband. I said, God is calling us to go to family camp. I am so excited. I explained the whole story. Remember when I was younger? And I explained it all. And he was like, nope. I'm like, no, but God told me, I'm convinced. And he's like, I'm not sleeping on a floor in a sleeping bag. It's dusty. It's dirty. I don't know what camp he went to. It's clearly not like this camp. This camp's amazing. But anyway, he did not want to go. And I was just like fighting him. And I was like, no, I really feel convicted. Like, this is God, it's his plan. I've never known anything more real. And he was like, so not going to do it. And I was like, all right. So I left. Weeks later, I'm like, all right, Lord, if you want my family at family camp, you're going to have to get us there because I'm not going to family camp without my family. That would be ridiculous. So I let it go. Family camp went by, and I was sad. I really thought we were going to go, and I let it go. So that was in August. In March, our family went to Florida, got on a plane, 3 years old. I had a 3-year-old to a 9-year-old, and had all the seats arranged, and I was like really working hard. Flying with a 3-year-old is an adventure, as some of you might know. But anyway, so we went on the plane, or we're sitting in the lobby, and they came over the loudspeaker, and they said, oh, by the way, all of your seats are rearranged. Get a seat when you get on the plane. And I was like they gave us a new ticket with all new seats, and none of us were together. And I'm like, I have a 3-year-old. No one's going to want to sit by him, I promise. And so my daughter's laughing. Anyway, so I said, what should I do? And she goes, oh, just tap on somebody's shoulder and ask them to switch. I was like, oh, great, this is never going to work. All right, fine. So I got on the plane. I tap on this guy's shoulder who I thought we could switch, and he looked back at me, and he was my camp leader. And I was like, what are the chances? If we didn't move all our seats around, I wouldn't have tapped on I tapped on his shoulder of all the people that I could have been. And his wife was also my young life leader when I was young. And so I was like telling him about how I felt like God wanted us to go to family camp. And they were like, oh my word, we're going to be leaders at family camp next year. You got to come. And I was like, what? What are the chances? So they convinced my husband to go to family camp. God used all those things to get my family to family camp. And the reason I tell you this is not only to plug this family camp here, because it is amazing. It was a life-changing week for us, or weekend, I should say. But the cool thing was all the things God did from that weekend. My oldest son had a year-long brain injury that happened like 3 months later. And the sermon that the guy gave spoke to us and gave us strength for the next year. God knew I needed to get there. God knew I wasn't going to be able to go the year before. God had it all worked out. And I tell you all this because we can trust God. We can trust that God has a plan. When we are shaken and we go through really hard things as a family, God is paying attention. He's lining things up for us. He's preparing us in ways we don't even realize. But we have to trust in Him. Well, one of the things that the camp speaker said to us at that time was he said, your children, they're just an extension of you. And so if you only focus on your children, you're being more selfish. And so he said, you have to focus on your kids and love them with all your heart, but you have to put God at the center of it all. And so instead of focusing on my son's sports or, the things that we did and giving all the glory to my kid, which I was doing, we started giving glory to God through his activities. And so it really reshaped the way we looked at it. And I think if we had put so much faith in my kid's sports, watching a brain injury like that, watching him not be able to play sports for a really long time, watching him kind of lose all of his friends and everything would have been so hard if we were giving all the glory to him and not where it was supposed to be. And also, family camp taught us that, sharing the gospel with your kids is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be good. And so when you're here at these camps and you're doing fun things, your kids are going to remember that God's love is fun and good. Let's see. So, what can be shaken? Anything in the world, anything in this world can be shaken. Any performance, any sport, any accomplishment. But what cannot be shaken is the kingdom of God, his righteousness, his goodness, his promises, his faithfulness, his mercy, his grace, his love. All right, so I'm going to ask you, let's see. Oh, I got ahead of myself. So who is this God we know, love, and trust? Would he be sitting way up high, looking down on your family, wondering what you're going to do wrong next? Or is he going to be sitting next to you at the dinner table with an up-close and personal relationship? Would he be in portrait view on your camera? Or would he be off into the distance? When we think of God, he can seem so holy that he almost feels distant, like we're high up in an airplane looking down and we're just really small. Like we never can measure up. And we truly can't measure up to God without him perfecting us, without his forgiveness. But you know what? God is a God that bends down and picks us up, and he swings us around with a smile on his face. God is not one that is, shaking his fist and shaking his finger at us. He is like a loving grandfather sitting at the table at your family. So, how would the show look if God was the film's director? I think God would edit out the messy parts of our show, the ones that your family has asked forgiveness for. I think he would put the loving parts on a big old Megatron. I think he would tweet out Bible verses. He would shine a spotlight on the humble, the lost, and the desperate for God, so that we can see them and reach out to them. And sometimes we get to be the humble and the lost and the desperate in need of help. And he's going to shine a light on us so others can come alongside us and help us. The highlight reel that God would make, it would show his sweet children whose faith brought them to their knees. So I asked each of my family members separately to give me 5 words that describe our family in 5 words. And it was crazy how much their 5 words were similar. These were the top 5. They said that we were Christian or faithful, loyal, trustworthy, loving and served others, hardworking and smart, fun and chill. My youngest called us chill. And I said, what do you mean by chill? And he said, well, you let us do Nerf wars, messy forts, ugly Christmas trees, all these crazy things that other families aren't really excited about. And so I'm going to challenge you, moms. I want you to think about what 5 words you would like your family to resonate. I want you to think about that because all of a sudden they graduate and move on to college, and you want to look back and you want to know that those 5 key words, those are your guiding principles. And so talk to your daughters. Ask her, what 5 words would you describe our family? You can do that tonight because we're kind of running out of time. And then moms, you tell her what you think. And just give that some thought and pray and ask God to give you the words he wants to see come alive in your family. Maybe put them on the wall or on a fridge. Perhaps maybe make a family mission statement. Display it as you remember of what God can do in and through you and your family. And in conclusion, take some time to ask God, what key areas of life does he want you to focus on? What does he want to shake out of your life to ensure that you remain unshakable in your faith? Formulate a flight plan for your family with God at the center, leaving an intentional, bold way to fly towards God's best. And if you get distracted like I did when that 727 came along, ask God to guide you back home through his loving grace. Not every one of us can learn to fly, but every one of us can soar. When we throw off the weight that holds us back, persevere when things look scary, and we lose our way, fix our eyes on the river of living water. We continue to place our faith in God, he will continue to bring us to a place where we could never be shaken, never be lost, and never lose hope again. Tomorrow we're going to talk about unwavering hope. Thank you so much.